Hello everybody, I hope you're having a lovely day. So today guys, I want to talk about The Passion of the Christ. So this is a film that I have never ever watched before, and I've watched a lot of movies in my time. When I was about 15 or 16, I would go through movies like you wouldn't believe, okay? I mean, there was a period of time when I was at college where I think I used to go through about 2 or 3 films a day. It was kind of actually nuts. I used to watch films endlessly, so it is actually quite surprising that I'd never seen this movie, even though, you know, I've only been a Christian for a short time. But I guess it was just one of those that I kind of knew in the back of my head what it was going to be about, and it's not my sort of thing. I don't like stuff that's overly graphic. I don't like, you know, movies like horror films that are really gory. It's not my cup of tea. So yeah, over the last couple months, I have had this urge to watch this film, not because I want to watch it, because again, it's a very horrible film to sit and watch, but I just wanted to, you know, like, it's just one of those films I feel like it's important, and I feel like you just ought to watch it. It's one of those. Anyway, I decided that this Easter, that was something I wanted to do. I wanted to watch The Passion of the Christ for the first time. How did I feel about this film? Well, I've got quite a few thoughts. There's a lot of things going around in my head, but ultimately, it's a very, very powerful movie. It's incredible, actually. It's quite masterful. However, it is not an easy watch, and I feel like that's probably very obvious. But yeah, I cried, it was sad, it hurt to watch the whole thing, but I'm glad I did it, you know? Ultimately, I am glad that I watched it, as hard as it was. I don't know if I'll ever watch it again, but I feel like I maybe could just do it, like, traditionally. I could watch it maybe every year or two, I don't know, but I don't want to watch it again. It's one of them. If anybody's ever watched 12 Years a Slave, it was the same for me with that. Like, I watched it, very powerful movie, I'll never watch it again. Schindler's List was another one. That is a horrible movie. It's one you should watch, but one and done. However, with me being a Christian, I do feel like I ought to watch The Passion of the Christ more than once, but I don't want to. Anyway, but let's get to the point of the film. The film is great, and I'm kind of going to go through it and break it down, I guess, just talk about some of my thoughts on it, because I've got, like I said, quite a few things to talk about. This might be a bit of a rambly video, but yeah, I'll try to stay on topic, but yeah, we'll just see where it goes. So I guess the first thing I want to talk about was like my ultimate plan for watching this movie, because I didn't want to just sit and watch the film. I did actually have, you know, some ideas of how I wanted to watch it. So first things first, I wanted to watch it in the evening on my own when it was quiet, because, you know, when there's lots of distractions going on, it's just not really ideal to watch a film that, you know, is going to be like it is. You know, I knew what this film was going to be about, so I wanted ultimate focus on the film. So I waited till at night time to watch it. Another thing I wanted to do was fast before watching it. Now, I have tried a couple fasts, but I've never done a 24-hour fast where I've gone from like the whole day and the whole night without eating, because it's not fun, all right? It's not fun. Fasting isn't fun. But yeah, I wanted to do it this Easter, so yeah, Good Friday, I didn't eat anything. I didn't eat anything in the day and the night, and I felt like that would, you know, put me in a ready mood to watch it. I felt like I would, you know, just take a little bit of suffering in order to appreciate what Jesus had done, but within like 20 seconds of watching the film, I quickly realized that there's nothing I could have done to prepare me for what I would watch. Like, the only thing I probably could have done is ask somebody, like, you know, knock on my neighbour's door and say, can you torture me for a couple hours? Like, that maybe that would have prepared me. A little bit of fasting was nothing, so the whole idea was kind of stupid. I honestly just felt guilty, the fact that I even thought that would, I don't know, like, it would give me a perspective. It was just a stupid idea. Anyway, the film actually kicks off in the Garden of Gethsemane. It doesn't actually start at the beginning of Jesus' ministry. It doesn't start with his birth or anything like that. You do get the occasional flashback onto things that happen throughout Jesus' life, but it just basically starts from the Garden of Gethsemane all the way up to his crucifixion. In fact, you don't even really see the resurrection. Like, you get a very quick glimpse of the resurrection, and that's it. I'm sorry if I'm spoiling this film for anyone that hasn't watched it, but go watch it. It's very good. And the Garden of Gethsemane has always been such a what's the word I'm looking for? It's always been interesting to me. I don't know, that wasn't a word. I had another word in my head, but it's always been really interesting to me. And the reason it's been interesting to me is that when you read about it, it says that Jesus was sweating blood. Now, I've never heard of that, but you know that Jesus was in fear. But in spite of that fear, it actually says that Jesus prayed more earnestly to the Father, which is not something we often do as people, or at least, you know, I speak for myself here. If I'm in great distress, I very rarely pray more. If anything, I distance myself from God. If I'm in like I almost try to tackle it myself, if that makes sense. Whereas Jesus, in all of his fear and in all of his distress, so much so that he's sweating blood, he actually prayed more earnestly to the Father, which I think is quite incredible. So when you start watching the film and you see Jesus, played by Jim something. Let me look it up. I feel like I need to know the guy's name. Jim Caviezel. Caviezel. I don't know how to say it. Anyway, we'll just call him Jim, all right? So yeah, Jim obviously plays Jesus, and he does an incredible job, by the way. Like, the acting in this film is mwah, especially from him. He doesn't actually have a ton of dialogue, but just how he manages to embody Jesus, you know, he's just got an aura about him. He's actually really amazing. Anyway, I've gone on a little bit of a tangent here. So yeah, Jesus is in the garden, and he's praying, and you can just see the intensity of the situation. It really does give you that imagery, you know, like when I'm reading the Bible sometimes, and you know, obviously I'm not gonna sit here and knock the Bible, but obviously it doesn't quite sell it to you, you know, it's not J.R. Tolkien when you read the Bible sometimes. It will say stuff in a very matter-of-fact kind of way, and you know, there are certain times where you could do with a bit more description and a bit more detail, and yeah, the film really does give you that detail. It just really puts you in the situation, and yeah, I feel like it did a really good job in the garden specifically. You see him, you know, sweating the blood, and it just, again, you feel that intensity straight away. Nothing's even happened yet, but you just know there's something dark and sinister is going to happen. So yeah, Jesus gets arrested and taken to the Roman people because obviously they want to crucify him, but they can't crucify him. Then they're not allowed to under law, but they know that the Romans can, so they bring Jesus to the Romans. We all know how the story goes. And the lead up to this, we've seen Jesus been attacked and spat on and punched, and it's really hard to watch. Like, we've not even gotten to the really horrible stuff yet, but just seeing, you know, our Lord and Saviour get just this sickening treatment, it's just horrible. I was saying to my dad, because he's never actually watched the film and he doesn't want to, but I was saying to him that a lot of the stuff you see in this film, if it was anybody else, it would be hard to watch, but no way it just amplifies it so much, because you know it's Jesus who is innocent and blameless, and you know, he does so much for us, and you just know of Jesus's character throughout the Bible. When you see these things happen to him, it just crushes you inside. So yeah, Jesus gets handed to the Romans, and I honestly think this might be my favorite casting choice in the whole film. But Pontius Pilate, I can't unsee him like this now. I feel like whoever acted as Pontius Pilate, I'll throw it up on screen, he just did such a great job. Like, I don't know, he just felt like it was him. I don't know how to describe it. He's talking to the Pharisees and the high priest, and he's like, this man doesn't deserve death. Why do you want to crucify him? You know, they go back and forth. Pontius Pilate finds out that Jesus is a Galilean, and he's like, well, it's not my problem. So he hands him over to King Herod, and King Herod asks Jesus, you know, do loads of signs and miracles. You know, he just wants to see the fireworks show. He wants to see crazy stuff. Jesus ignores him, of course, and then he gets brought back to Pontius Pilate. And then we get one of my favorite moments in the entire film, and that's where we see Barabbas. And Barabbas, of course, is a murderer, and, you know, again, the person that plays Barabbas, he does a really good job of just making you just despise him. Like, he has such a small amount of screen time, but you can just look at him and think, this guy is not a good person. Then we get to the point where Pontius Pilate is like, well, do you want me to free Barabbas, who's a murderer and a despicable human being, or do you want me to free the innocent man, Jesus Christ? And unexpectedly, to Pontius Pilate at least, all the Jews say, yeah, we want Barabbas freed. And he's like, are you kidding me? And the reason I like Pontius Pilate's casting so much is he just does such a great job with, like, the facial details and stuff, and you can tell that he's not, like, he doesn't want a rebellion, you know, like the Romans they didn't want the Jews kicking off constantly, and they would, and that's, you know, Romans wanted just to ultimately have control, but at the same time, he's got that internal conflict inside of him where he knows Jesus is not worthy of crucifixion, and, you know, and he wants to almost give him an out with Barabbas. So when the Jews say, no, we want Barabbas freed, it's just like, what more can I do, sort of thing. And the reason I like this scene in particular is we see this really small moment where Barabbas gets freed, and he's like really happy about it. He's like, yeah, I'm freed. And you just look at him like, how can this even be possible? And you see Jesus look at Barabbas, and it's such a great moment. Like, you can just, I don't know, like, it's incredible. I mean, you're probably seeing it on screen right now. It's such an impactful moment. So yeah, up until this point, you know, I was sad, I felt horrible, I didn't feel good, but I hadn't cried yet. Like, it was a hard watch even at this point, just seeing Jesus get spat on and all these different things, and just seeing how despicable some of these people were. But again, like, it wasn't like, I hadn't cried yet, basically. But that was all about to change, because this next scene, and I won't be able to show it on YouTube because it's violent and it's horrible, but yeah, it was a hard watch. And I think it's like the moment that a lot of people, when they refer to this film being overly violent, is what they're referring to. The problem is, though, is if this film was even half as violent as it is and half as visceral, would you really get the message? Would it really sit in like it does? And the irony of it is I genuinely think the real thing would have been so much worse. Like, we almost got a neutered down version of what really went down. I bet you it was far worse. So yeah, we see Jesus get whipped with these canes and it's horrible. It's just like, you're just wanting it to end, and that made me cry. But then when they got the whips out, and I can't remember what these whips were, but they're just really brutal. I might have to look it up again, because they're like, they're specifically designed to be brutal. The Romans and their they basically gotten torture down to a T. They knew what they were doing, and yeah, they really did go to work. So yeah, if I'm not mistaken, it's called a Roman scourge. It's also known as a flagrum, according to Google. But yeah, basically it's designed in a way that it will tear the flesh off the back. And yeah, the whole scene, it was already brutal up until that point, but it's like, it's so much worse. And one of the most gut-wrenching aspects of that scene is where it actually cuts over to Mary, and you can see that Mary just cannot watch anymore, Mother Mary that is, and she has to turn away. But as she's turning away, you can still hear it going on in the background, and it is so hard to just, like, the whole thing, I'm just like, at this point, I'm crying. It's horrible. Once it's all over, you see Jesus just like, he's barely got any life in him. Like, he's just in so much agony. You see blood everywhere, and it's like, it's just crazy to me, because there are people that say, like, that basically, you know, because Jesus died quite quickly on the crucifix, like, he didn't actually, I think the way that the Roman crucifix was designed is that you would be on there for quite a long time and you'd be suffering all the way, but Jesus died quite quickly for that. But when you see that scene, you're surprised he lasted as long as he, like, that alone should be enough to kill a man. Like I said, like, it's just such a hard scene to watch, and it was just horrible. And I'll be honest with you guys, I stopped watching the film after that. Like, I'd watched that and I thought, I can't actually watch anymore. I was tired, it was late, I'd done this fast, I wanted to go to bed. That was it for me for that night. So I was halfway through the film at this point, so I had to watch the rest of it on Saturday. I'm not gonna lie, I wasn't exactly chomping at the bit to get into it, you know, like, it was one of them where normally if I watch a film and, you know, let's say I pause it or whatever, or, you know, go and do something else, I can't wait to get back into it. But whereas with this, I didn't want to watch it. I was like, for me, I'd watched enough, but I knew I needed to sit and watch the rest. So anyway, Saturday night, I put the film back on and I crack back on with it, and yeah, it doesn't get any better, unfortunately. It doesn't get any worse, but it's still horrible to watch. You see Jesus get the crown of thorns put on his head, and the Romans are just cackling away whilst they're doing it and mocking him and spitting on him, and I just wanted to, I was enraged. I just like, how can you do this to our Lord? And then we have to see Jesus, you know, with all of the scars and all of the damage that he's already taken for us, and he's carrying that cross up through the streets, and, you know, whilst he's being jeered at and spat on, and I just, like, it really puts into perspective what Jesus did for us. Because when you read the book, you know, the Bible, it's difficult to really feel just how much he did actually take for us. But when you watch this film, it really sinks it into your soul just how much he took for us. All of that punishment on his innocent shoulders, like, it's honestly crazy. And I think that's why this film is so powerful, is it just gives you such imagery on what would have happened. And again, I think it's a watered down version of the reality. I think the actual situation that happened to Jesus would have been worse, unfortunately. So yeah, Jesus carrying the cross up, and then he gets put onto the cross, and, you know, they hammer the nails into his hand. And I think in reality, I think we found out that actually the Romans wouldn't hammer into the palms. They would actually do it through the wrists, because it would actually hold the weight. I don't know if that's 100% certain or facts, but that's what I've heard. But wherever that nail went, you know, it wouldn't have been nice, you know, just getting your hand, wrist, whatever, getting punctured by a nail. Not nice, not fun, not just horrible to watch. And we have to see Jesus, you know, again, is suffering on the cross, and it's just more difficult stuff to put your eyes on. However, one thing this film does really well is it does just give you a couple of small glimmers of joy. There's not a lot. 99% of this film is horrible and not enjoyable, but there is that occasional glimmer. Like, you see a couple of the flashbacks where Jesus, for example, is with Mother Mary, and he's doing carpentry, and that's a really nice moment. One of my favorite aspects is where we see the thief on the cross, and we get to see that unravel. And again, Jesus, in all of his suffering, he promises the thief on the cross that you will be with me in the kingdom of heaven. That is just, it's just incredible to be able to offer such grace and such mercy in your worst moments, in a moment that you are suffering unbelievably. It just shows and highlights just how graceful our Lord truly is. But amongst all of the physical suffering that Jesus had to suffer, he also had to suffer what was probably the worst thing for him, and that was the separation from the Father. And this is something that over Easter I've really thought deeply about. It's just something that's only just started to hit home, was that moment where Jesus does feel that separation, because again, he takes the weight of our sins, which causes separation with God. And the reason that we as people are separated from God in the first place is because of sin. So when Jesus takes that sin upon himself, he has to also then go through that separation. And that's really just started to hit home over Easter. I never really thought about it that deeply. And one of the reasons that I have thought about it so deeply is actually from this book that I've been reading, and I really enjoyed this book and I would thoroughly recommend it. The book is actually called Becoming a House of Prayer. It's really good. It's one of those books where you just read a chapter a day, and the chapters are quite short, so you don't have to be sitting there for 10 hours a day reading. And if I was to summarize what this book is in a very brief way, it's really good, honestly, but it's basically breaking down the Lord's Prayer and just, talking about prayer in general, and it's just so many good little tidbits in it. But I think it was in chapter 9, there was something that really just kind of was profound to me. Here it is here. So it says, remarkably, the only moment when Jesus didn't call God Father was on the cross. This is the only moment, apparently, I'm assuming he's not lying, that Jesus doesn't refer to God as his Father. And it's when he says, my God, why have you forsaken me? Which, of course, is also a reference to one of the Psalms. I can't remember which one now, but again, I'll throw it up on screen. But that just really hit home for me, that when Jesus experienced that separation, he could not call him his Father, because in those brief moments, he wasn't his Father. And that probably would have been the hardest thing that Jesus took amongst all of that physical suffering, was experiencing the separation of the Father. Like, it's just, again, like the things that Jesus did for us, like I don't think we could ever truly fathom it. See, after that, we see Jesus die, and there's a really cool detail in the film where you see Jesus' eyes, they actually dilate, like you see them like expand, which is not something you see in a lot of films, but I thought that was a really cool detail. And that's pretty much it. And honestly, I was just like, I was relieved. I thought, at least the suffering is done. I don't have to see my Lord take anything else. And then we see like a big earthquake, and the temple starts going mental, and all the Pharisees are like, what's going on? And I'm just like, I'm always like hoping that temple gets launched into another stratosphere because of those bloody Pharisees and what they did. And the film thankfully ends on a really nice note. We don't get to see much of it, but we do get to see Jesus resurrect from the tomb. And it was just like, thank you. Like, after all of that, after witnessing all of that, we get to experience what it was all for. And honestly, it just got me so excited for Passion of the Christ 2. Like, I cannot wait for that film. I think it's coming out next year. I will be there front seat in the cinema watching that one. I can't wait. Like, that's gonna be so exciting. So yeah, that's Passion of the Christ, guys. There's a lot more to it. There's a lot more details that I didn't talk about. It was just it was a great film with lots of things in it that I could sit here and unravel all day, because it was really, really profound. But yeah, I think I mentioned everything that I wanted to mention. So yeah, I really enjoyed, that's not the right word, I didn't enjoy the film, but I really liked the film. I think it was a really great film, and I thoroughly recommend that anybody that has not watched it, they should definitely watch it. It's really good. And if you've got friends or family that maybe are slightly lukewarm, or maybe they're just not a believer at all, sit them down and make them watch this film if they're old enough. If they're a child, do not do that. But yeah, if they're like 18 plus or whatever, just sit them down and say, watch this film. It will really put things into perspective for you. It did for me. It really sank home what Jesus did, and I can't unpicture it now. But yeah, I think that's gonna do it then, guys. I hope you all enjoyed. If you did, like the video, subscribe. Look forward to a very fun video. The next video is gonna be a lot more light-hearted. I think you'll all enjoy it, so look forward to that one. Other than that, though, I'll see you all for the next one. All right, peace.
My God, why have you forsaken me? Why are you so far from saving me? So far from my cries of anguish? Oh my God, I cry out by day, but you do not answer. By night, but I find no rest. Yet you are enthroned as the Holy One. You are the one Israel